It's May 2nd, 2014. We're in Portland, Oregon for the sixth game of a first-round matchup between the Houston Rockets and Portland Trailblazers. Houston's up 2 with 9/10 of a second left. Blazers inbounding. We're about to witness one of the most thrilling endings to any NBA playoff series ever. But before we find out what happens, we need to replay. First and foremost, the 2014 NBA playoffs are lit. It's just the first round and we're witnessing madness from bout to bout. Sure, the Heat swept the Bobcats, but come on, it's the Bobcats. And the Wizards handled the Bulls with ease. But elsewhere, we might be watching one of the most drawn-out but fun first rounds in memory. The first seed Pacers are slugging it out with the lowly Hawks, ditto for their Western counterparts, with the all-Texas affair of the 1-seed Spurs and the 8-seed Mavericks going down to the wire. The high-flying Thunder are meeting their ideological opposites but physical equals in the grit-and-grind Grizzlies, and the Nets and Raptors will need a Game 7 as well, while the Battle of California rages with the Lob City Clippers and a young, hungry Warriors going the distance. The West, in particular, is grueling, which has got to be frustrating for these two ostensibly middle-of-the-pack teams. Since the turn of the decade, the East and West have had little parity. Outside of the last hurrah of the Boston Celtics Big Three, the last 3 years have been heat, heat, heat. The Eastern road to the finals has run through LeBron James, leading to a bit of atrophy for the rest of the conference. Which is frustrating, as even though they're 4 and 5 seeds in the West, the Rockets and Blazers would have tied James's Heat for the second best record in the East. The West is brutal, and has seen a yearly changing of the guard, going from Kobe's last final appearance to Dirk's first win, the Durant-Westbrook tandem of OKC, and then the Spurs. You may have noticed that none of those teams are the Rockets or Blazers, and that's because both of these franchises have had fairly miserable recent histories. The Rockets won their first NBA championship in the 90s, with back-to-back titles under the leadership and deft hands of Hakeem Olajuwon. The core of Hakeem, Clyde Drexler, Sam Cassell, and Kenny Smith was a sight to behold. But their 90s core shriveled up, and Houston scrambled to snag a duo of big guy, athletic guy that reflected the Hakeem Drexler glory days. With the first pick in the 2002 draft, they selected 7'6" Yao Ming exactly a year after Hakeem retired. And in the 2004 offseason, they picked up the all-action Tracy McGrady from Orlando. When the two played together, they were spellbinding. Ming might have been the most graceful big man since Hakeem, and McGrady scored at will.
For the win! Yes! 12.7 to go!
They gave the Rockets faithful both a dynamic 1-2 punch on the court and the same sort of myth-making splendor that defined the 90s. With one big exception. These Rockets, they didn't win shit. From 97 to 09, the Rockets didn't win a single playoff series. The frustration stemmed first from Ming and McGrady's constant injury issues. The other problem was the aforementioned Western buzzsaw. The 2000s were the golden years of two Western dynasties, the Spurs and Lakers. For an entire decade, there was only 1 year when the Spurs or Lakers weren't the West's representatives in the final, with another Texas team, the Mavs in 06, breaking the stranglehold. Seeing the other Texans thrive as the core of their team was squandered had to hurt, but the hurt of the Rockets doesn't match the long, festering torture that Trailblazers fans put themselves through. As Game of Zones put it, Portland is the house with one banner. 1977 was the Blazers' year, when Bill Walton was the Finals MVP and the Blazers were only 7 years old as an organization. The next few decades were rocky. The 80s saw total domination by the Showtime Lakers, even though Portland had found a genuine star in the 83 draft. Would you look at that? It's Clyde Drexler. With Drexler, they reached 2 finals in 90 and 92, but when Drexler left in 95, he turned around and won that championship with the Rockets. He'd been an excellent servant to the Blazers and perhaps the greatest player in their history, but it still had to hurt to see him with a ring in Texas rather than Oregon. Portland's greatest season since came in 2000. That team, often dubbed the Trailblazers due to some temperamental elements, was made of aging legend Scottie Pippen, a young Rasheed Wallace, an even younger Jermaine O'Neal, silky big man Arvydas Sabonis, and assassin Steve Smith. In the 2000 Western Conference Finals, the Blazers nearly sent the Shaq-Kobe Lakers packing. Instead, they collapsed in the fourth quarter of Game 7 and LA went on to found a dynasty. That near miss keeps Portland fans up at night, not just because of what might have been, but the fallout afterward. After that series, things got hostile fast. Sheed and Arvydas started fighting, and the core blew up. Since then, it's been 14 straight years without advancing to the second round, the longest current streak in the NBA. It has been a long, horrific time for Oregon basketball heads. So two perpetually suffering franchises go head-to-head, not just to be a contender in the topsy-turvy West, but to exercise personal demons. How's that going so far? Well, despite winning 3 of their 4 matches in the regular season, Houston's narrow lead right now is do or die. Lose here and they're back to the drawing board and nursing a familiar heartache. And a lot of that has to do with this man, LaMarcus Aldridge. Aldridge was the 2nd overall pick in the 2006 draft, a pick the Knicks had frittered away to the Bulls, who traded Aldridge to the Blazers for totally not a pile of trash. Considering the dumpster fire that is the New York Knicks and the Bulls' first-round loss, both of these teams could really do with him. This series so far has been defined by one question: can you stop Aldridge? If no, do not pass go, do not collect $200, get dunked on repeatedly. In the first 2 games, on the road mind you, Aldridge was godlike, dropping 46 and 43 on the Rockets in Houston. But despite those numbers, Houston kept it close, and they have been able to slow Aldridge. There's going cold, and then there are the Antarctic numbers he dropped in Game 5, getting all of 8 points. That was the same game where we got a Linsanity throwback, with Jeremy throwing down 21 as the Blazers bricked. But Aldridge has done well tonight, practically living on the left side of the hoop and enjoying his traditional post dominance, along with some solid assists.
Lopez free. Great find by LaMarcus.
When the Rockets have been able to stymie him, they've relied on a new big guy, scory guy tandem in Dwight Howard and James Harden. Both of these players are in weird spots of their careers. Harden was the first cast-off in the Thunder's attempts to hemorrhage off as much talent as they possibly could, with the former 6th Man of the Year getting lowballed when it came time for contract talks, and taking his talents to Houston, and he's proved that he can lead as a frontman as much as a bench presence, making the All-Star team in his 2 seasons in Texas. But if you're a Harden hater, this season will have helped your grudge. There's an argument that the Thunder have gotten even better without him, considering the last 2 years has had them as the 1st and 2nd seed in the West, and despite a few games with 30-plus points, he started this series going a woeful 10 for 46 from 3. But he started out hot tonight, doing his usual, drawing fouls and swiping threes.
The beard is in the building.
Dwight, meanwhile, is coming off a very grumpy season with the Lakers, where the attempted triumvirate of Howard, Kobe, and Steve Nash completely fell apart, thanks to injuries and behind-the-scenes awfulness. After 2 losses in Houston, the Rockets traveled to Portland and won a shootout overtime thriller, where the pair were excellent. Howard dominated the boards with 14 rebounds, and Harden scorched the Blazers for 37, despite Damian Lillard's impressive 30-point, 6-assist night. And now's as good of time as any to introduce the man clapping for the ball beyond the 3-point line. The Oakland native played at the relatively small Weber State for college, but he torched the Big Sky division. He had a broken foot that kept him out for a season and didn't use all 4 years of eligibility and still ended up being the division's 5th highest scorer ever. He went into the 2012 NBA draft where the Blazers scooped him up 6th overall. His impact was instant. On his debut, he scored 23 and assisted 11, and his production stayed sterling all year. He became the 4th ever player to win Rookie of the Year unanimously. This year, he started all 82 games, improved his averages, and participated in 5 of the All-Star Game activities. Jack of all trades, master of all is the only way to describe the Swiss Army knife that is Damian Lillard. He hasn't been as explosive as he could be, but a lot of that has come by dishing the ball to the red-hot Aldridge. Up until tonight, he's led the Blazers in assists every game, and he leads the playoffs as a whole, in 3-pointers. Game 6 has been as absurdly even as the rest of the series. Howard's got 12 points this quarter and was surprisingly not terrible from the line. Portland's hack-a-Howard tactics might come back to haunt them if there's a Game 7. If Howard carries this momentum and Harden can find his first quarter form in 2 days, Portland are screwed. After Nicholas Batum tied things at 96,
Stops, tough shot. He hit it! Tied at 96!
Chandler Parsons, who hasn't scored a single field goal in the second half, put the Rockets back up 2.
Keep it. Parsons scores! With 9/10 left! Somehow he found it!
There was a feeling of finality after that shot, like the air had just been sucked out of the Moda Center. The Rockets were going to battle back from 3-1 down and make the next round an all-Texas affair. Unless anything, happens right here, right now. And let's look at this play. We've already had a preview. Portland set up the exact same way before Rockets coach Kevin McHale called a timeout and switched up the positions, except for James Harden, who is in the exact same place he was before, allowing Lillard to peel off the presumptive hero of this game, Chandler Parsons. Batum's been instructed to get the ball to Aldridge so he can tie the game, but Lillard clearly has other ideas. So 2 long-suffering franchises have suddenly found the light at the end of the tunnel. It's just blocked by a different, hapless team reaching, not just for wins, but the respect they've lost. Houston has players fighting to prove that they are so much more than their old teams, that they can lead on their own, that they made the right decision to try and return Houston to its 90s glory days. Portland has a generational young talent and a dominant big man who both seem primed for stardom. But what if this doesn't work? Even with the ability on display, Portland might very well make it 15 straight years without a series win. Is this another shimmer of false hope? Will the never-ending road to recovery from 2000 finally end? Someone is going to experience heartbreak. Someone else is going to have sheer euphoria flowing through them. And all of it depends on the next 9/10 of a second. Welcome to a moment in history.
Wins the series. It's Lillard. He got the shot off. Lillard, good! Good! And the Blazers win the series for the first time in 14 years!